In the early hours of August 8, 1963, a gang of 16 men stopped a moving train in the English countryside and walked away with over 2.6 million pounds in cash, the equivalent of $80 million today.
Wait, they just stopped a train? No explosions, no high-speed chases?
Just a few pieces of cardboard and a battery. It was the heist of the century, executed with military precision, yet it was eventually brought down by a bottle of ketchup and a game of Monopoly.
Okay, you can't just drop Monopoly and Ketchup and not explain how that ruins a multi-million-pound robbery.
To understand the Great Train Robbery, you have to meet Bruce Reynolds. He was a high society-loving criminal in London who wanted one big score to retire on.
And he decided the best way to do that was to rob the post office?
Specifically, the Royal Mail's travelling post office train. Every night it ran from Glasgow to London, and on this particular night it was carrying the weekend takings from Scottish banks, sacks and sacks of used, untraceable banknotes.
But how do you know which train car has the money? I assume the post office doesn't put a giant dollar sign on the side.
They had an inside man known only as the Ulsterman. To this day, his real identity is one of Britain's greatest mysteries, but he gave the gang everything: the schedules, the floor plans, and exactly which car held the high-value packages.
So Reynolds has the inside info, he has the target, and he has a team of 15 other guys. What was the world like back then? Was security just non-existent?
It was an era of innocence. The train had no radio, no alarm systems, and the only security was a few postal workers with a set of keys. The gang spent months in the woods practicing how to uncouple train cars in total darkness.
Walk me through the night. How do you actually pull over a locomotive?
At 3:15 a.m., the gang reached a signal box at Sears Crossing. They covered the green signal light with a glove and used a 6-volt battery to turn the red light on.
That is terrifyingly simple. The driver just sees red and stops?
Exactly. Driver Jack Mills stepped out to investigate, and that's when the gang struck. They climbed into the cab, and in a moment that changed everything, someone hit Mills over the head with a metal bar.
I thought this was a precise nonviolent plan.
That was the intent, but the violence against Mills turned the public and the police against them instantly. After the assault, the robbers realized their own getaway driver couldn't actually operate this specific type of diesel engine.
No way. They planned everything except how to drive the getaway vehicle?
It's the ultimate facepalm moment. They had to drag the bleeding, semi-conscious Jack Mills back into the seat and force him to drive the engine and the first 2 carriages a mile down the track to Brightigo Bridge.
Meanwhile, the rest of the train is just sitting there in the dark?
Precisely. The postal workers in the back cars had no idea their engine was gone. At the bridge, the gang formed a human chain, tossing 120 mail sacks into waiting Land Rovers in just 30 minutes.
And they get away. They're rich. Where do you go with 120 sacks of cash?
They headed to Leatherslade Farm, a hideout they'd bought 27 miles away. They spent days there, laughing and playing Monopoly using real stolen banknotes for the game.
This feels like the part where it all goes wrong.
Their plan was to wait for the heat to die down, but they heard on a police scanner that the cops were searching every farm in a 30-mile radius. In a total panic, the gang split up and fled days earlier than planned.
But they cleaned the place, right? Professional criminals don't leave a trail.
They paid a guy to clean the farm, but he took the money and took off instead. When the police walked in, they found the farm littered with evidence. They found Bruce Reynolds' fingerprints on a bottle of Heinz ketchup and the whole gang's prints all over that Monopoly board.
So the board game they used to celebrate actually put them in jail?
Every single one of them. Most were sentenced to 30 years, which was unheard of for a robbery. The judge wanted to make an example of them because they had challenged the state itself.
Did the money ever turn up? They had millions.
Less than 20% was ever found. The rest is likely buried or laundered through 1960s London businesses. It's also important to note that while the robbers became weirdly famous, like Ronnie Biggs, who escaped prison and lived in Brazil for decades, the victims didn't fare so well.
Right, the driver, Jack Mills. What happened to him?
He never fully recovered. The head injury and the trauma ended his career, and he died just a few years later. It's the dark side of the glamorous heist narrative. The heavy sentences and the trauma effectively ended the era of the Royal Mail cash trains. The government realized you can't just put millions of pounds on a passenger track and hope for the best.
It's wild that a multi-million-pound operation was cracked by a condiment and a board game. What's the one thing to remember about the Great Train Robbery?
It was a masterpiece of criminal engineering that was completely dismantled by the most human of errors, a failure to do the dishes.
That's Wikipedia. Every story, on demand. Search your next topic at wikipedia.ai.